Okay, hello everyone. Hopefully my voice is loud and clear. This episode, I feel it's going to be a short one. I want to speak about this idea that there are questions to be answered, and there could be the potential that some existential questions, their answer is experiential. What I mean by that is like there's some questions that the human being is an answer for, it's as if there's an inspiration, and just like how poetically one can say that a market has a demand, it's as if the universe had a demand for creaturehood, for the human design. And now that the intelligence of our humanism has arrived, it's kind of like wondering if the human being was a key, what door is it required to enter, This notion of the question and the answer, or the notion of a problem and an answer, the problems arise from the movement of nature. That means before mankind has any problem with anything, it's just nature moving. And ever since our individualism, it's as if mankind's problem is his extraction of meaning out of a world of just out of a gigantic event. There's levels of self-inquiry where the self becomes attributeless. And when the self becomes attributeless, the whole moment becomes your body. What I mean by this is that we start off with an identity. This identity identifies with the movements of the biological body. If the biological body is still and the awareness within the being realizes everything is within that awareness, it's as if the person's mind was moving in the world until, the mind realized the world is moving inside it. It's not that the world is just turning in outer space. The world is turning in the inner space behind our eyes. And so that means there are, in some sense, two worlds. The world in front of our eyes, its problems tend to be physical, or all related to physical management. I can't think of one problem I've had in the outer realms that has had nothing to do with physical. With the physical component of life, in the outer realms, it's the puzzle is a physical problem, is an objective problem. In the inner realms, you can say it is a subjective problem, and beyond the inner and the outer, there is no problem, because there is no one to see a problem beyond humanized dualistic psychology. There was this movie scene in the film Gladiator, a very profound movie scene. If I was to tell the listeners, in this movie scene, pretty much Maximus the main character, is tied underneath the Colosseum somewhere, and what happens is that his kind of like commander buddy comes to him and says, "Hey Maximus, I can free you." Sorry, he says, "Hey Maximus, I'm a soldier. I will obey." And what he means that if you give the order for me to free you, I will free you. And it is in that moment where there's some incredible acting, and Maximus looks at the character in that scene and says something in the lines of, "Nature never puts one through something that it has not prepared them for." And what that means is the intelligence of nature, with the same magnificence that our bodies heal, I feel existence arrives into experiential space in the same way. I feel that every human being born is not just a random appearance, but is actually a response to some energetic fluctuation in the realm. You know what it's like? It's as if the Wright brothers invented the plane, and the moment they invented the airplane, so many children were born to become pilots. Do you know? Or it's like a human being talking about advanced communication, and so many children being born to, in some sense, advanced communication. Right? That means it's as if the world has a request, but its request is hidden from our eyes, and our whole lifetime is, the journey towards that resolution. From a young age, I have been fascinated by puzzles and trying to solve things. The puzzles were on a table when I was young where I was fixing them, but now I would say the biggest puzzle of them all is in the table of my attention, and everyone's attention. You see, dear listeners, when we are found in a world that we have never been before, and I'm not speaking to esoteric audiences who feel they've been born alive before this life. I'm just saying that we enter this world, and our biology is a vehicle for an unknown attention roaming the space-time continuum in known ways to itself. The mystery of our lives is pretty much, there's going to be eventually, so let's say it like this, that the humanity is a collective system, and this collective system within itself will generate problems. That means in anything a person does, in any direction. If somebody just chooses to walk a straight line in some direction, eventually they will go hit certain obstacles. So it is just natural in the aim of concentration that in any single pointedness of mind, in anything, just like a person even digging for treasure, let's say somebody's vertically digging down the earth, down the ground to find treasure, they will eventually hit difficulty, right? Because that is the nature of reality. Simplicity is like the exoteric, the surface, and complexity is like the essence. And really this model changes, where some moments in life on the surface it looks simple, but actually behind the scenes it's a very complex moment, or sometimes the opposite. You sometimes see a very complex moment on the surface, but then you realize its essence is very simple, right? So it's this constant shift between man finds himself in a moment more complex than his identity, which then he has to endure through, or a moment that is more simpler than his identity, which his endurance is kind of letting go. We can say that the way the karmic waves of samsara are moving is in some sense a sort of back and forth and back and forth, and people are thinking like the waves of the shore, smoothing the sands on the beach that were written on, is in some sense like karma. I'm telling you, it's like karma is like the earth, the living universe is inhaling and exhaling. In the inhalation of the world, universes are born. In the exhalation of the world, universes leave. And honestly, civilizations are guests in manifestation, you know? That means I feel that even though we have so many narratives that robots, extraterrestrials, whatever that man's mind can think of, he has made it against himself. But really, I feel that human beings are a guest of this universal sector, and there are states of mind beyond our humanism that we cannot fathom, yet they fathom us. You know, to treat your life as a question gives a purpose to one's energetic existence, as if why am I an energetic phenomena in the moment, in the space-time continuum? And the answer comes, yeah, you're conscious of energy to use energy. So it's as if we are individuals because there is something that we require to do as individuals. You know, enlightenment gives the person too soon an impression that they have to leave the world, not realizing for the enlightened, the world is the end of all. Really, it's like, what else can the light in our eyes teach? All teachings that are verbs, they will come down to nouns. And all nouns will come down to the void. And the void has one final teaching, that whatever reality does, all goes forth. And you know what's interesting? Based on the type of character a person has, or as Alan Watts says, ego is kind of like the sense of self you're paying attention to be yourself. Every sense of self gives us a different access to the moment. That means I was thinking about this the other day, that how human beings, they start off in life having no profession, and eventually their attention lands in somewhere, and then they, in some attain their professionalism by their non-stop endurance and exploration. So I thought, what is it that in any moment a person, just like wearing a jacket, the person can look through the eyes of a designer. The person can look through so many different eyes that it's ridiculous, right? That means it's as if you can have a person, you can have a scientist, a psychologist, a philosopher, and a mystic in one room, right? And in some sense, you could see those as each separate domains of their own exploration, or you can suddenly see a person that is all of them, right? Back in the day, there was an astronomer, and there was an artist, and there were people who were like Da Vinci and Rabindranath Tagore and, you know, various other geniuses in our history, where they in some sense were not one role. It's as if the person had multiple jackets on, but the only reason they had multiple jackets on is because they knew how to take off one jacket and put another, right? So when I say multiple jackets, I mean multiple efforts simultaneously, because, you know, people say that women can multitask, you know, and men can't, you know, but really we are a multi-dimensional being, you know. You know, it's like telling a multi-dimensional being you can't multitask is like saying, hey, you know, one world has to be the result of all worlds. Not the case. Our life is an energy, and this energy can, let's say it this way, that can the energy can transmute into a question or an answer. That means if there was, let's say, a time traveler from the future of an advanced civilization that had come back to Earth, to this moment, let's say poetically, and this time traveler had an opportunity to just give one advice to humanity, it would be as if in the service of all that is, let your life, the way we live life, at least in 2021, whoever you're listening, let your life either be a great question for humanity or a great answer. And whether we like it or not, both will formulate. It's like the wings of a bird. The moment it moves its right wing, it notices it can move its left wing. Then it notices it can move its right wing and left wing simultaneously. Right? It's about the discovery of the dimensions of intelligence and then the administration of these dimensions of intelligence as a sort of response to the realm. As if in the creative dimensions of life, as if when one sees a victory, whether it is their own or of others, they need to celebrate, I would say those who celebrate every victory of humanity, they will be the ones who their eyes will see the fruits of this, intelligent effort. And it's really like, believe it or not, as much as I go into the poetic dimensions, life is really like a science project. It is something that is built, this 8 billion year old science project, and we're like, should we care for it? Should we not? What do we do with the science project? Where's the science fair? I feel that the brain has the capacity to fit both archetypal positions. That means in any moment I can see an object or anything and I can extract a question or an answer. And this is the key thing to intelligence. That means if the mind had a steering wheel, this would be it. That the person's attention can go to the question of how something is there. Right now I can feel this moment I'm in, this moment of existence, right, that I'm in right now as I'm giving this podcast. I can question this. I can have a question that takes this moment to the zero dimension, to a zero valuation. That means I can feel this, I can question this moment and take it to nothingness. I can take it to emptiness. I can question this moment and take it to the singular. I can question this moment, take it to the dual. I can question this moment and take it to the infinite, or I can answer this moment and do the same, where I can give an answer that is void. That means somebody could be like, Mr. Within, what is the meaning of life? And I'll be like, nothing, leave me alone. That's one answer. Somebody could be like, Mr. Within, what is the meaning of life? And I could just be like, it's all of it. And if somebody says, Mr. Within, what is the meaning of life? I'll be like, fundamentally, life is divided between chaos and order, and it's the play of chaos and order beyond the human mind. That is, that could be another answer. Somebody could be like, Mr. Within, what is the meaning of life? And I could be like, it is to be infinite. It's as if life has a hidden desire to experience its infinite individual output before the curtains of the elemental are pulled. Because who are we kidding? The mind is like a space, and it's as if we are dressed. We are clothed in conception. Because, guys, it is ultimately just emotions being more significant intelligent factors than just concepts. It's as if we think about a robot and what can a robot do that a human being can't, right? And a robot can calculate, and sure, the left brain of the human being can calculate, but a robot cannot feel for now. It cannot be emotional. In movies, like for example, we see that there was this incredible movie which I feel it deserves a lot of awards, but It was from long time ago, called Bicentennial Man. Robin Williams, if I remember correctly, was the main actor. And so, in this film, pretty much it was the journey of a robot into becoming a human. But a robot cannot feel. So feeling and emotions are the superior dimension. I would say that somebody who is just analyzing life and somebody who is feeling life, the person who's feeling life is who's feeling life is of course ahead. I'm telling you, a designer can build any design on a table, can have any question on it. When it comes to the analytical dimension of one's perception, again, it's just 0, 1, 2, infinity. And it just repeats. That means the cycle of the mind is just change. That means we're a concept in a context, and either the concept is changing or the context is changing, or they're both changing. And if they're both changing, what the hell can we even do here? You know, it's as if it's like we're in a changing world trying to believe that we're something, you know. You know, this kind of makes the whole species wonder, what have we been believing in this whole time? You know, people are like, yeah, I see humanity, but do we have an emotional relationship, right? I would say in the future, probably there will be people who will be very emotionless when it comes to microcosmic concepts, but when it comes to the macrocosm, they'll get emotional, right? It's as if, like, if neighboring countries are at war, for example, if neighboring countries are at war, and if the person doesn't care, you know, then imagine a scenario where extraterrestrials are invading a part of Earth, right? That's when human beings will be like, whoa, 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 this is our turf. You know, even though the hostility we see, we should treat it as a sort of global civil war when nations fight with each other over resources. It's a global civil war, but it is, if the civil war was not there, we would be one global movement, right? That means, can you imagine every child on the planet suddenly realizing they have a hidden family? A hidden family that is so gigantic that it's as if, imagine one day you woke up and you realized you had 8 billion siblings. You had 8 billion let's say crew members as part of Spaceship Earth, as Marshall McLuhan and Buckminster Fuller suggested. These two people are very important, guys. Marshall McLuhan was pretty much a genius that spoke about the significance of the written word in modern times, and Buckminster Fuller was just pretty much, to me, he was a time traveler, designer from the future who had kind of like maybe like lost his time machine. He was so ahead of his time, Buckminster Fuller. It's ridiculous. Like, I can totally say that if you were to see somebody like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and if you were to see Buckminster Fuller, you would totally see that both of their minds are in the service of the collective will. And the collective will is not an idea, because if you think about it, I think it was Aristotle, or it could have been Plato, but it was definitely one of these ancient Greek philosophers that spoke about how if other species, let's say like wolves, if wolves or lions, let's say if lions became conscious right now to the capacity that human beings are, they would create a god that is a lion. They would worship a god that is in the image of the lion. And you know what's hilarious? Everything is made in the image of energy. It's as if what a religious person says is God's will, it's like the secular person says is energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. You know, in the religious context, the concept of God cannot be created or destroyed. It is the inconceivable. When it comes to energy, we have to divide it into types. So just the singularity of energy as just everything being made of it. If consciousness was a type of energy, then the soul cannot be created or destroyed, which explains how energy has no other purpose other than to transform. The cycle of karma is not just night and day and just waking up, and then going back, not like a dolphin jumping between the conscious and the unconscious. I would say the cycle of karma is how eternal energy is positioned to witness its temporary effects. So what I mean by this is, imagine there was a cause to the universe, but this cause was untouchable when it came to its effect. That means, imagine a dimension, one dimension causes other dimensions, but nothing happens to that dimension, and from the beginning till the end of time the causal dimension is active. That means imagine we're inside a simulation as creatures, and we're like, yeah, what do we do? And then somebody's like, wait guys, if we're inside a simulation, where is the simulation? That means many people ask, where am I in? Or they come to the conclusion life is a dream, like mystics back in the day, and they say it's okay, I'm in a simulation. Then the person has to ask, where is the simulation? Is the simulation inside the simulation? Or is it in some sense that the simulation is actually the disguise of truth? That means it's as if like truth is, its back is to us and we see a simulation, when truth's face is facing us. In some sense there is no simulation to see. We have become we have been granted access into the kingdoms of universal energy. You know, it's a remarkable realization when you notice that a candle has been prophesizing the human existence. That it's honestly a light. We are walking candles, you know. Our minds are the glow of the candle. The wax is melting as we grow old in the space-time continuum. And so while the candle has its light, it has to ask itself, why is there the light of consciousness active in the moment? And why is there this level of sophistication of intelligence observant to itself? I am telling you, most people on this planet, they will see nothing in this life more than themselves, usually. It's very few people, I would say, there are some rare human beings on this planet where they manage to actually see beyond themselves. And when I say they see beyond themselves, they engage a reality that has nothing to do with image. Can you imagine? That means we're sensory creatures. You know, at the back of our eye, there's nerve cells that translate light into color. But imagine going beyond anything your sensory perception gives you. It's as if the yogi was like, oh my God, I gotta renounce my ignorance. And then the ancient yogi was like, how do I do that though? And how you renounce your ignorance is by finding the origin of the movement, the inspiration of the movement in the moment of one's intelligence. That is all that I am doing, and it's not that I have a choice. That's all that we can do as intelligent beings. In our intelligent expression, discover the limits, you know, the limits, the edges, the boundaries of our outer realms and our inner realms. And this relationship that our mind has with the world will suggest the karma that our mind can access. You know, some people's karma, I remember seeing this Facebook meme, or this Facebook post, and it was this picture, and it was one of the most incredible, like, short pictures you could ever see. If there was a museum for incredible short pictures that shared the most. So this picture demonstrated, it was just showing that there was a person who, I think it was this, there was a person who was driving a very nice car, and this person who's driving a very nice car sees this person who has an airplane, right? So this person who has a car sees an airplane in the sky and he's like, oh man, it would have been nice if I had my own private jet, right? Then in the picture it shows there is a motorcyclist looking at the person with the very nice car and being like, man, I wish I had a nice car. Then you see to the side of the motorcyclist there's a person with a bicycle, and the person's like, man, I wish I had this nice motorcycle. And then you see to the side of the person with the bicycle there's a person without a bicycle walking, and he's like, man, I wish I had a bicycle. Then you see there's a person who's walking and there's a person on a wheelchair, and the person on the wheelchair is like, man, I wish I could walk. And imagine, I mean, this wasn't in the picture, but I could imagine there was a pet, like a dog beside a person, and the dog's like, man, I wish I could access human consciousness. What I'm saying is that we can realize that the geometry of the world has no hierarchy. This is why I'm saying that in the future, designers will be the savior of humanity, because mistakes in the future will come from emotional mismanagement or our reaction through our emotions. But I would say that those who experience life geometrically, probably in the next 30 years, they will be the most significant people on earth. Because geometry that is going behind our eyes requires like a giant exploration kind of team. Right, so I'm pretty much that guy saying, hey, there's a world in front of our eyes. We've explored the, edges of that world so far. We've explored that pretty well. We've advanced, mobility. In the sense where we have people doing parkour, advanced athleticism, so we've mastered movement and exploration in the outer realms, but we have not mastered exploration and movement in the inner realms. Or if I was to give a percentage, how many people on this planet are actually utilizing the incredible intelligence accessible to them through their mind as an antenna? I will say maybe 20% of the whole species is actually has connected to the logos, or has understood that there is something greater than the human ideology moving here in the room. Really, intelligence can only respond to circumstance. I would honestly say in the future they will see the concept of meditation as just the phone call to the collective self. It's as if meditation means before you're an individual, you're conscious of your humanity, your collective identity. Right now, people function with individual identity. When their individual identity feels it can jump up to a greater responsibility, it goes towards collective identity. That means many people think that it's just human beings are starting families just for the sake of reproduction and legacy. I will tell you, really, it's just the advancement of the human care of itself and its inner realms, and then eventually it goes on to the outer realms, and then eventually, as the outer realms are taken care of, the inner realms remodify. So I am telling you, it's not just only like one image, absolutist image of truth. People who expect communication to communicate the whole world. It's as if like language cannot do the impossible. There is no way language can in any way be truth. Language can only point to truth. Language is like a it's like a pointing finger. It's like a finger pointed to the stars, where the light of the star is becoming our sight. So language is literally, the best metaphor for it is a finger that is pointing to the stars. That the light in our eyes has nothing to do with our thought. It's just there. You know, that's the cool thing about worldhood, being a creature in a world, being a character in a elemental video game. We are given free will for certain activities. You know, it's like the planet was like, all right, human being, I'll let your free will control your body's movement, but when it comes to like the heart beating, the body's going to do that on its own. You know, when it comes to all the different anatomical systems of the body, it's like a lot of them, they function on their own. They have their intelligence. It's like a person doesn't have to communicate, you know, to the cells of their body, hey, work, keep working, you know, go overtime, heart, and the heart. And so what I mean by this, really playfully, is that the wisdom of our body is that energy is endless. The heart is acting as if the body's energy never finishes. And it's fascinating. It's the biggest thing that I would say, one of the most incredible things that a lot of people forget when it comes to just observing human psychology, is that there was a time we were hunter-gatherers. Can you imagine how weird starting a tribe was in history? Right? It's like random people in the forest are like, yo, should we all like chill in one place? You know, and all the people were like, yeah, sure, there's wild beasts that attack us, you know. And it was like the human mind that allowed human bodies to become tribes. And then tribes followed the same pattern. And the union of intelligence, it just flies beyond. You know, they say there is no stupid question. But in reality, there is nothing. That means I'm that person saying, hey guys, language is an Iron Man suit. The language without anyone in it or without any attention on it has no meaning. Symbols are not just known, they are kept alive in the light of consciousness. Sometimes I feel that our species functions under the impression that we have personalities as individuals, but really what it is, it's like a film projector starting from scratch in every new moment where new information arrives, or waves of new information in you. You know, that means it's like, imagine a person walking in the park, and then somebody shouts, hey, tsunami, you know? And in that moment, whoever you are walking in that park, that sense of self is dismissed, and the emergency sense of self comes in with a much more sophisticated response, right? That means human intelligence is so much more advanced than it is being utilized, I'm telling you. You know what it is? It's as if we have access to the internet on our computer, but we're just using our computer's calculator app. Like, how silly would that be, right? Imagine a person buys an expensive computer and then they only use the calculator. So it's like the same thing with human living, where human beings are living, in this human opportunity, but they're only using the calculator app. They're only measuring and systemizing, which is another way of saying we contain image through other image. That means the interconnectivity and the interdependence that, let's say, Buddha spoke about reality's origin. That everything is interdependent. Interdependent. It's kind of like without. I feel from any moment, if a question can be extracted, that means any moment can be added dimensions. And when we give an answer, we take away dimensions. Guys, this is it. I think I just figured this out, that a question is defined as an effort that leads to more dimensions, and an answer leads to less dimensions. So answers are more important. So to any human being that answers are more important, you will become religious. To any human being who questions are more important, you will become secular. There we go. It's all about questions and answers. And the type of question we ask suggests what our life does, right? That means I'm a human being that wondered about, like, what is this mind? Who's looking through my eyes? What's going on in this life? And those questions made me arrive in this moment where I'm giving a podcast about it. So I would say that it's like our curiosity. They say curiosity killed the cat. It's like curiosity killed the past self upon the revelation of the new self, of the new world. It's like a person has been, it's like this whole planetary dimension, or let's say this human life that we find ourselves in. Imagine it is one room of a giant and endlessly infinite cosmic mansion. Imagine that human beings, as they go up the, let's say, potential individual evolutionary chart in accordance to universal intelligence. Imagine human beings, we reach a point where, this is really sci-fi, hypothetical, keep it in mind, but imagine civilization advances so much that we get to a point where we have entered a sort of galactic united planets kind of thing, rather than a global United Nations. Imagine a galactic united planets, and species from all planets have entered this, let's say, poetically galactic sort of council, So imagine, this is maybe like 5,000 years in the future. Okay, we got to that point. And imagine there is a galactic council And imagine in this galactic council, human beings, they require to, in some sense, be an ambassador of their own species. So it's as if it's such an advanced level of intelligence that it's as if the collective, the sum total energetic will of the planet Earth becomes the decision of the species to vote in regards to a sort of, let's say, universal command. What I'm trying to say is that we get to a point where we're on Earth, there could be aliens, we go and get to the level of the aliens, then it's like asking the aliens, hey, do you guys have aliens? It's like, what are your mysteries, you know? That means some people, they would want an extraterrestrial to give them answers about the universe. I would be like, hey, extraterrestrial, what's your greatest question of the universe, you know? Like, I'm just trying to create a thought experiment where in a universal context, we go beyond any archetype. Imagine an extraterrestrial comes down to Earth. And when this extraterrestrial comes down to Earth, and okay, I'm just thinking of the scenario in the future, an extraterrestrial lands on Earth and asks human beings, how do you perceive me? That would be a smart question to ask. Right? Like, imagine the human civilization became so advanced in the future. In our spacecraft, we went to other civilizations that were like at our own early stages. You know how right now in media and social media, there's this whole mentor, find the mentor buzz going on. Do you know? Everybody's being a mentor on you. You know, that's why I honestly chose the name Mr.Within. The simple is enough. But imagine we go and see this evolving species on another planet, and we remember the childhood of our own species, and we're like, yo, let's mentor this species. We would ask the species how it perceives itself, how it perceives the extraterrestrially, the invisible other. You know, human beings should be so fearless, and we should be so connected, and in the future have a network of intelligence where I will tell you that all I want to see is that information highways to be built in the inner realms. We have to build a city behind our eyes and then in front of it. You know, that's what advancement is. You saw a better world and you walked towards it. That's the basic, right? That means if someone was like Mr.Within, what's the realization? I would say, at least in whatever you're doing in this life, in the back of your mind, accept the greatness of your species, because it amplifies the signal for the rest. That means, imagine in a future some conflict befalls, some off-planetary conflict befalls the species. What kind of human beings do we want to see? Do we want to see human beings that are like in cornered animal fear psychology, or do we want to see advanced retaliations, right? What that means is, imagine there's, you know, I'll give you this thing. I'll share you this thing. When I was really young, you know, in my sometimes I have a twin brother. Me and my twin brother would stay at my grandmother's place when we were very young. And when she would cook, her cooking was very nice, but there would be a lot of like smoke and steam. You know, I don't know how to say it. So me and my twin brother had to find whatever newspaper was around and just fan this thing so it doesn't make a noise, you know. You know, this thing, I forget the term on the ceiling, you know. And it was as if in that moment, just find the quickest thing that you can use as a fan and utilize it. And in the same way, it's an instantaneous response. That's how advanced we can be. We're not there. at 3 times more its dimension, or even 1. Like, I will tell you, the human psychology we have today is so fragile that people are identifying with narratives of their own defeat before they identify with the narratives of their own success, not realizing beyond emotions all geometry is the same. You know, that means it's like, if you only perceive through a materialist perspective, it's like, how can there even be morality? That means, imagine, I feel like we're all like, imagine somebody does something good, somebody does something bad, and they're both being judged, and we're like, how do we judge them when they're all atoms? You know, how do we judge a part of the periodic table that has become a human? So it becomes very difficult. It becomes, the mind is projecting meaning into the world. You know, I'm that person who went to film school, and midway in film school realized my mind has been a film school from the beginning of my life. There's a cinematic, rhythmic ability to not have thoughts, not to create thoughts, but to be still and silent and notice thoughts. I would say that's an accurate verb. We don't have thoughts, we notice them. That means it's automated at some point. That means, who knew? In the outer realms, we have voluntary systems and involuntary systems. Again, the metaphor of the example I use of like the heart just beats without us thinking about it. Like, sometimes when I give these talks in the middle, I'm like, no way, you know, my biological existence has maintained itself so far. Like, incredible. You know, if I could give a medal of honor to every cell of my being, but I know about being too interested in who is sharing the content, you know. To me, information is information. It doesn't matter who says it. The moment it is said, it's like the reality is accessible. At the end of the day, we're just, you know, packets of biological energy. We are capsules of pods, energy pods, you know, and inside these energy pods there is a living witness. I must trust that the little bit of love that I sow now will bear many fruits here in this world and the life to come. William S. Burroughs says your mind will answer more questions if you learn to relax and wait for the answer. And this is why they say in wisdom, patience is a virtue. Why? Because in patience, the mind gets to see more information than we respond. Sam Harris says, human well-being is not a random phenomenon. It depends on many factors, ranging from genetics and neurobiology to sociology and economics. But clearly there are scientific truths to be known and how we can flourish in this world. Wherever we can have an impact on the well-being of others, questions of morality apply. And you know, guys, I just got an image in my inner realms. This is the perfect way I can explain to you how an advanced civilization will develop in the future. Every advanced communicator right now is kinda in their own walled kingdom. We're living at an era where the mind still has individual sovereignty. That means we haven't truly experienced collective mindhood, even though cyberspace is taking us that way. So I would say for a second in my inner realms, I had this vision that it's as if all knowledgeable people on the planet so far, right, they are kind of like commanding officers on a horse, right? So all influential people on the planet right now, you know, there's so many people on the planet who there's like many eyes on, right? So it's as if you are kind of like the commanding officer, you're the command of the cavalry, and so it's like, you know, as important attention moves in the realm, many move with the important attention. Now, the idea is that every person who is in some sense keeping alive an important part of the world, all these cavalry commanding officers, as if the advanced civilization is the general, and the general has called forth for all cavalry, all dimensions, all kingdoms, all, I mean, poetically, all the kings and queens of information on this planet to, in some sense, come to a great gathering, you know, to an allegiance. And so, whoever you are on this planet, the moment you understand the advanced communicator archetype and the pilot of consciousness archetype has finally landed here, it's as if we march towards the advancement of communication. Everybody has reached, is victorious. Do you see? It's as if right now we have an opportunity on one idea, that if that one idea is successful, we are all successful, right? So it's as if an 8 billion project of incredible importance is about to begin, and has begun, but we have to remember it now. Thomas Berger says the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Claude Lévi-Strauss says the wise man doesn't give the right answers, he poses the right questions. Yeah, that means not all human beings are here to be like, yeah, here's your answer of truth, you know, let me prescribe truth for you, you know, there's no you know, it's, to be honest, we're here, that's really the honor of the philosopher. That means whoever is a philosopher listening to me, you have to come up with one question that only your eyes, the macrocosm, and then the sky. Neil deGrasse Tyson says an incredible statement. He says, no one is dumb who is curious. The people who don't ask questions remain clueless throughout their lives. Naguib Mahfouz says, you can tell whether a man is clever by his answers. You can tell whether a man is wise by the questions, by his questions. Lord Byron says there are 4 questions of value in life, Don Octavio. What is sacred? Of what is the spirit made? What is worth living for, and what is worth dying for? The answer to each is the same. Only love. Wow. Lord Byron just hit a home run, guys. He's saying that when you wonder about what is the source of the unknown, when you wonder about what is the soul's destination, when you wonder about the value of life and it's the value of the beginning of life and the value of its end. In the sounds of a changing world, Lord Byron says love. Guys, you know why it's love? You know why all the wisdom traditions are saying love is the path to truth? Because the universe is alive, and without love you cannot accept the universe to even perceive its intelligence. Love is like the last step on the staircase to truth, I would say, or to true reality. Paulo Coelho says culture makes people understand each other better. And if they understand each other better in their soul, it is easier to overcome the economical and political barriers. But first they have to understand that their neighbor is in the end just like them, with the same problems, the same questions. That means at the end of the day, yeah, we're all just human beings trying to like function somewhere, you know? And if the efficiency of the collective functions is activated, it just becomes incredible. That means imagine a civilization that recycles human ignorance into clarity. That means we are human beings that we're so smart as a species that we made a backup system, and instead of not making mistakes, we made the consequence of our mistakes into efficiency. What that means is all violence was taken into cyberspace. probably in the future there's going to be a lot of playful cyberspace wars every day, you know. That means you can totally see the evolution of gaming becoming more and more connected to reality, where in the future, like, imagine people are waiting at a line in a coffee shop and then they get into an argument, and then they in some sense press this button on their phones, or they give a command to their spherical flying let's say phone in the future, and so they find themselves in a virtual reality where those two people in the line, they're still waiting in the line, but they've gone into a cyberspace battle where through a certain theme they're battling it out in their psyches. What I mean is that the future can be so ahead that Sugata Mitra says learning is the new skill. Imagination, creation, and asking new questions are its core. I would say just realizing you're inside a giant unknown world and what you're going to do about it. That's like the beginning of knowledge. Anyways, guys, there's too much noise. I'm going to thank the listeners for listening. I'm going to say two last quotes and then end off. Chanakya says, before you start some work, always ask yourself 3 questions. Why am I doing it? What the results might be, and will I be successful only when you think deeply and find satisfactory answers to these questions? Go ahead. And Johann Wolfgang von Goethe says, ignorant men raise questions that wise men answered 1,000 years ago. And I'll read this. George St. Pierre says, the more knowledge you get, the more questions you ask. The smarter you get, the more you realize that everything can be possible, because the unknown is the permission. The unknown means nobody knows what the outcome is, so if the person attempts a model of perception, you know, it's a 50-50 pretty much. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Ask great questions so that great answers find you. Namaste.